Hey guys, what's cracking? It's Krakenation. I'm coming at you guys today, not with a competitive analysis video, although we are certainly still in that vein. Today we're going to be talking about Team Building University. So with the recent growth of the channel, I figured we got to step up the level of content. So Team Building University, a series that has been my channel, basically my staple through my whole time making YouTube videos for 5 years now. This video is going to be a step up in terms of level of content that Team Building University is going to put out. Put some work in this video. Let me know what you guys think. We're taking the production quality up a little bit, hopefully. We're taking the informational quality up. We're going to try to take some new Generation 8 mechanics as well as some just concepts, maybe just some new mons you'll see, and try to take them in hopefully a direction that will allow us to learn about competitive Pokemon, learn how to construct a team. So today, we're going to be talking about how to approach building your team in competitive Pokemon, specifically in Generation 8 here, but I think what I talk about in this video, the concepts that we talk about, is definitely going to be things that are applicable long-term to a variety of different teams that you might build now, a year from now, down the road. These things are kind of self-evident. They're going to be things that you can, concepts that we're going to talk about today will be things you can hold on to right now and use today, but they're going to be kind of generally applicable, hopefully, to almost all teams you'll build at any point during your career in competitive Pokemon. So we're going to talk about how to approach building a team. So when we're approaching to building a team, when we start thinking about how we want to build our team, what I kind of think about is what you want to build with is the first thing. So you basically, whenever you build any kind of team, I think basically the first step is like, what Pokemon do you want to use today, right? I think that's like basically how you want to start. I think that's might sound a little basic, but I don't think there's a better starting point than that. And sometimes people want to figure out, how do I start building a team when I'm making a competitive team? And I think that what you got to start with is just pick a Pokemon that you want to use. And that sounds basic, but that's pretty much it, because nobody's going to be a better judge of that than you. And if the point of Pokemon, right, is to have fun, so you want to pick Pokemon that you're going to have fun with. So decide on a Pokemon that you want to start building around. So for Generation 8, one of the Pokemon I'm most excited about to try using competitive play is Hatterene. I think this Pokemon just seems super exciting to use, does some really cool stuff, seems really good. So I think the Hatterene's a really cool Pokemon that today, for this video's sake, use an example, we're going to use Hatterene to focus on building my team today as we're going through. Now keep in mind, everything I talk about today is going to be a little bit more generic, so that you can hopefully apply what I'm talking about from my team today that I'm building to teams that you're going to use in the future. So the next thing you need to think about when you're using for example, my Hatterene here, and your Pokemon that you decide on, is what kind of set are you going to use on this Pokemon. So Hatterene is a Psychic Fairy type. We know it's got good special offense, good special defense. It's going to be a good Trick Room user, for example. It's also a decent support Pokemon, good Wall Breaker with a choice specs, good Calm Mind user. So it does a lot of things well. So when we have so many options, we need to decide, what set do I want to use today, and what set, or for this team in general, and what kind of concept do I want to go for? Because when you're deciding on this first set, it's going to potentially lay some groundwork for all the decisions you're going to make down the line, right? So what kind of set are you going to use for this first Pokemon? So for Hatterene here, I want to use a Trick Room Hatterene set. This set's going to run a Life Orb to maximize this damage output. And we're going to run Trick Room, Dazzling Gleam, Mystical Fire, and Psyshock. We're going to run a Quiet Nature. This is a set that's basically straight out of my Hatterene analysis video. If you haven't checked that out, be sure to go and check that video out. But this is going to be my Hatterene set of choice. We're going to use it to hopefully clean up in the late game. That's going to be kind of the goal of this set. It's got a lot of power, obviously, and it's got the chance to hit hard enough so it can be considered a wall breaker, I think. It's not crazy, but because you're so slow, and Trick Room access is going to give you a chance to set this thing up and then proceed to clean through your opponent's team. I think it's got a really good chance to do that. Magic Bounce is a cool ability. It does cool stuff in the early game. It can be a wall breaker. Maybe depending on how your team is constructed, you have different ways to win, different potential win con. But this as a win con will be a Pokemon that can hopefully clean up in the late game. So I'm going to run a Trick Room Hatterene set from my team today. So now the next question you need to ask yourself is, what are some strengths and weaknesses that I can support through synergy? That's going to be synergy through another 1 or 2 partners on your team. And this is basically the essential concept we call core building in competitive Pokemon team building. So for Hatterene, we've got it's a Psychic Fairy type that leaves it with some typing vulnerabilities, obviously. It's also clearly an offensively oriented Pokemon, so you're going to want to support its offensively minded sets as well. So when you're picking your Pokemon, think about, if you're running a defensive Pokemon, What do you want to support that with? What are, for example, defensive partners that'll cover your typing weaknesses, cover your statistical weaknesses? Like if you're a physical wall, you're a steel type, you're going to be really afraid of special attackers maybe, so you want to support that with a special wall. Maybe something that can take on fire blasts, like maybe like a bulky water type would be a great partner for a physical wall steel type, because for example, your bulky water type can cover your steel type's weaknesses, such as your weakness to fire type attacks. But in return, your steel type can cover your water type's weakness to grass type attacks. So these kind of things and these kind of concepts can form strong defensive synergies between Pokemon, and that's how you're going to form a defensive core. On the other side of that, you can form offensive cores. Try not to think when you're using offensive cores, you need to use a very different philosophy from when you form defensive cores. When you form offensive cores, and I'll probably do another core building video on another day. This kind of gets into it for the most part. So like core building will be another concept we talk about more in depth on another day. But when we're forming offensive cores, for example, what we're going to want to focus on is how are we beating things, and when we can't beat something, how are we beating it in an alternate way? So for example, if we can't, this Hatterene might struggle with a steel type. What you want to pair it with is things that can beat steel types, for example. Does that make sense? So for example, like I was just saying, Hatterene struggles with steel types. You're going to want to keep that in mind and pair it with something that can threaten those steel types. It's also going to be a Pokemon that really wants chip damage and hazards. So when you're forming an offensive core, you want things that can support it with chip damage, for example. Finally, it also really appreciates wall breakers, because if a Pokemon like this, if Pokemon are really healthy enough to take one hit, like Hatterene basically needs to be OHKOing everything later in the match, because it's not bulky enough. If a physical attacker comes in on it, you're going to need to have that thing have taken some damage earlier in the match so that you can hopefully kill it in one hit before that thing gets an attack off on your Hatterene and kills it outright and ends your cleanup operation really prematurely, right? So you're going to want to keep that in mind, and when you're going to want to therefore pair it together with things that'll get that chip damage, wall break through your opponent's defensive Pokemon, and then hopefully that'll set your Hatterene up for success later in the match. So what Pokemon does all these things, you might ask? Now, for you, what that's going to entail is you're going to want to look through every Pokemon that might satisfy all these little conditions right here, right? So look for Pokemon, for my Hatterene, I'm going to look for Pokemon that appreciate wall break, have the chance to, be a wall breaker, because Hatterene appreciates wall breaking. Pokemon that maybe can set hazards. Also Pokemon can deal with steel types effectively. So these are all things that I'm going to look for as qualifiers when I'm deciding on the Pokemon that I'm going to use. Now for you, that's going to be something different. Like I said earlier, maybe you picked a steel type. Now you're going to look for Pokemon that can beat fire types, beat ground types, beat fighting types. Hopefully, you're going to want to maybe find something that can be a special wall if your steel type is a physical wall, something like that. So you're going to want to think about what your Pokemon is weak to, what it struggles with, and then find a core partner or core partners potentially to support that. So now we talked about Hatterene, and what's a Pokemon that goes with Hatterene, and it's Generation 8. We're going to pick a Pokemon that I'm also excited to use. We're going to use Copperajah. Copperajah is a Pokemon that seems really sick to me. I'm really excited to use it. So this is a Pokemon that I think satisfies those conditions with Hatterene really effectively. Copperajah is really good at dealing with opposing steel types because it's a steel type itself. It's not going to be weak to that, but it also has coverage moves like Earthquake to hit opposing steel types. It also has access to hazards in the form of Stealth Rock, so it can be that hazard setter that I need it to be. Finally, thanks to Sheer Force, Life Orb, and a good attack stat, Copperajah is a potentially fantastic wall breaker if I need it to be. So basically, Copperajah does all these things that Hatterene really appreciates and forms a really good offensive partner for it on a more kind of bulky offensive style. So this is a Copperajah that I'm going to use to pair with my Hatterene. I'm going to use a Life Orb Copperajah with Sheer Force to get that attack damage all the way up. I'm going to use Iron Head, Earthquake, and Rock Slide as my offensive moves. I've got that Edge Quake coverage between Rock Slide and Earthquake. Rock Slide is going to get that Life Orb Sheer Force boost. That's going to be really good. I'm going to have really, really powerful Iron Heads coming off of Life Orb Sheer Force. Finally, I'm going to run 252 attack, 252 HP. And an Adamant Nature, and what that's going to do is allow my Copperajah to be as bulky as possible while also just absolutely ripping off crazy powerful attacks later in the game. So I think these two Pokemon are going to work really well together. They're going to pair with each other nicely. Copperajah is obviously weak to those those fighting types. Hatterene poops on fighting types. Fighting types aren't a concern of Hatterene at all. It 4 times resists it, hits them super effectively with both of its stab moves. So that's going to be a really good partner for those two together. Now, we have these two partnered together, right? And so it's important now to think about what type of team are we forming now. Because this is the time to self-reflect. Once you have your first core, what type of archetype am I using, and what can I use to support it? So, for example, with Hatterene, sorry, I always change how I pronounce that. With Hatterene and Copperajah, I think we've got basically what sounds like a bulky offense team forming here. Hatterene will be more of a cleaner in the late game, while Copperajah can be our rock setter as well as a bulky wall breaker. So I think we're forming a cleaner and a wall breaker core here. And so when I kind of like combine those together, and in this was the case, I analyze these two Pokemon. To me, this feels like an offensive team. Now, this could go either way when I'm moving forward from here. To me, this could be a bulky offense or a hyper offense team, depending on what I do with the next 4 spots. I've got a lot of flexibility, obviously, but clearly this is an offensively oriented team because the first core that I started with, and I'm going to construct this team around, is a offensive core, clearly. It's not built around defensive principles, per se. It's built around beating things down offensively. So this is an offensive team. Now, if I want to go bulky or hyper offense, I'm going to decide bulky today. I'm feeling like a bulky offense kind of guy, so we're going to go with bulky offense today. All right, so the next question you're going to ask yourself is going to be, what can I do to support this core with my roles, right? So what roles can I fill in the remaining spots of my team, so in this case, the remaining 4 spots, that are going to support my core and maximize how effective it can be without, hopefully, not making it, without deadweighting it or anything like that, compounding weaknesses this has. For example, I have a lot of slow Pokemon here. I've got a Trick Room user, so maybe I want to support with more Trick Room users. I want to support this team defensively, so when this Pokemon, like something like Caparaja, that I am relying on to take hits, can't take the hit from what's on the field right now, I need to decide to pair that with a partner for it that can take a hit. So for example, with Caparaja, that's a bulky water type. Like I was saying earlier, my steel type, I want to pair the bulky water type, so I've got a defensive backbone right there. Maybe some bulky pivots to get more chip damage for my Hatterene sweep later in the game. Those are both things that could be really useful. And maybe even get Hatterene in for free later in the game by using something like a slow Volt Switch. Special wall breakers might be really good for me because I've got a physical wall breaker, so maybe I can pair a special wall breaker in there. Hazard clearing could be something I want to consider. Keep in mind, I'm going to appreciate Stealth Rocks on my side of the field, so if I can, I'm going to really want to pick something like a Rapid Spinner over a Defogger if I have that availability. Now, if there is, for example, a defogger that's a perfect fit, that's okay. There's pros and cons to every decision you make. There's always going to be an opportunity cost. For every time you fill a spot with something, you're not filling with something else, right? So when I decide on picking Hatterene and Caparaja, I'm going to keep in mind that I want hazards on my side of the field. So Rapid Spinner might make sense. Now, not all teams need hazard clearing. Keep that in mind. But hazard clearing is always going to be something you want to run because if you have space, because there's just some matchups that will focus on spike stacking against you, for example, and those games will be very hard to win if you don't have an option at least to hazard clear, or sticky webs, for example, or something. Finally, maybe I want additional Trick Room users. What's nice about Caparaja is that it can come in if Hatterene's sweep maybe has ended earlier than I planned. Caparaja can benefit off of those Trick Room terms as well. But maybe what I want is to provide additional Trick Room support to this team. Maybe I want to make a full-out Trick Room team. So these are all things that I need to consider when I'm filling the remaining spots of my team. Maybe I can compound these roles, like maybe I can find a bulky water type that is also a pivot. For example, Rotom Wash would be a fantastic partner for this team because it's a hazard clear, it's a bulky water type, and it's a pivot. And that combines all those into one. Or maybe I can do something like combine other roles like bulky pivot and a wall breaker, something like, nothing's coming to mind right now to be honest, but there are ways to combine these roles, clearly like Rotom Wash is, into compact packages where you can try to combine roles and therefore get to fill in more things that you need. Keep in mind when you're picking these roles, you need to be decisive with what you're doing. But for the most part, this is how I'm going to go about constructing an average team in competitive play. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Make sure to leave any questions you have. I always figure there's a lot with these Team Building University questions, so make sure to go ahead and leave any questions you have down below in the comments section. I really want to know what you guys thought about this video. This is something that I've been doing Team Building University videos just absolutely forever, so it's important to me. Oh, my dog's on the move. It's important to me to be give you guys good information. I think this information is going to be something that's applicable now, but it's going to be applicable in the future as well. So I think that's really helpful for you guys. Let me know if you found it helpful as well. Ask me any questions, specifically maybe if you want, in the comment section below. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Krakenation out.